You're listening to the Common Fan Podcast, a Husker football podcast for the common fan, by the common fan.
Welcome back to the Common Fan Podcast. I am TJ Burkle, as always, alongside Matty Owens, Sr. and Geoff in Lincoln. Get your certified Piedmontese beef, common fans. It's football season. It's still warm enough to be out there on the grill. And certified Piedmontese has everything you could want, from burgers to steaks to ribs to beef bacon, beef brats, all the stuff. And common fan listeners know you can now get 25% off certified Piedmontese beef going to cpbeef.com using the promo code COMMONFAN, all one word, common fan. You can also stop by your local Mercado butcher shop if maybe you're on the way to the game, maybe you're on the way to a tailgate, maybe a potluck. Stop by your local Mercado butcher shop in Lincoln or Omaha. Geoff loves potlucks. In Lincoln or Omaha, and you can get all the fixins, all the cuts, all the fresh beef, but also hot food ready to eat at the Mercado Butcher Shop. So you got to check those out as well. One more time, cpbeef.com. Use the promo code COMMONFAN. Live it, love it, eat it. Certified Piedmontese, powering the Husker football team and powering the Common Fan Podcast. Also, make sure to check out our brand new website, www.commonfan.co. We went to TS Web Services to build the site for us. Whether you need web development or hosting, they've got you covered. You can trust TS Web Services to take your online presence to the next level. Their team was very responsive and delivered high-quality work. TS Web Services can help improve, redesign, or host your website. Check out tswebservices.com to learn more. Friend of the program, Evan Bland, is back. Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald here with another edition of View From the Blandstands. Evan, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, the view is good. I mean, maybe not so good, depending on if we're just talking about the results of Friday. But no, hanging in there. I can't believe we're a third of the way through the regular season. I mean, you talk about how fast things go.
Yeah.
Here we are. It's unbelievable.
Moving.
I said that today, actually. I just can't believe that it's already this far into it. It's kind of depressing.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of sad, but that's all right. We got a lot of football left.
There's a lot left.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Evan, why can't Nebraska fans have nice things?
Oh, I don't know that we have enough time to talk about that. No, it's I mean, it was something, wasn't it? Like it felt like something right out of 2021, 2022, 2023, pick your year. There was a moment toward the end when it went into overtime on Friday night. I was like, man, wouldn't it be appropriate for Nebraska on the night that it celebrates 400 consecutive sellouts for it to end its losing skid against ranked opponents and to end its futility in overtime, which at that time had been 7 straight losses, no points. And of course that extends to 8. And none of it comes true, right? Like the streaks endure. That was sort of the theme of the night. And maybe Illinois is good. Maybe Illinois goes to Penn State and competes this weekend. And who knows how we view that game in a month. But man, that was a game that I know a lot of people counted on Nebraska winning. I thought they would win. I thought they would cover. I mean, they were 9-point favorites or whatever it was. And it didn't happen. So I'll remember that game as sort of the outlier in how we view Tony White's defense the last year and a half. I mean, it's been that piece that you could count on. And in a weird turn of events, this time it wasn't.
So, Evan, on that note, we're not panicking here. We're not overreacting here, but does the loss to Illinois change expectations for Nebraska's season? And I don't mean, like, we talked about this on our post game or our game recap episode. Like, we saw a lot of the stuff, penalties, mistakes, not being able to get it done in overtime, missing field goals, all those things that we've, like you said, that we saw for so many years. And that's troubling and that's frustrating, but it feels like they're going to get over that stuff eventually. It feels like Rule is going to fix that stuff eventually. But really troubling to me, and I think to a lot of Husker fans, is how pedestrian the defense looked, and how, like you said, we haven't, other than Michigan last year, we haven't really seen that. The defense has been the one thing we could count on. So do we? And I think also piggybacking that on, there were some people said there were warning signs after Northern Iowa, but hey, we only gave up 3 points. Let's not overdo it. Kind of 2 weeks in a row where it's like, is something going on with this defense? Are they not as good as we thought? I mean, are there bigger picture implications here when it comes to expectations for Nebraska's season?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people had openly said, hey, Nebraska is going to be 7-0 when you go to Ohio State, and that's going to be a top 10 matchup. Like that was the heights to which people were starting to imagine what this team could be. So I think it brings it down to earth a little bit, and it just reminds you that you don't go from 5-7 to 10 wins in a CFP, contending sort of team overnight. Like there's going to be ups and downs. I thought what Matt Rule said on Monday was good about, this is a year two sort of thing. Like that's when when the culture has been established, maybe you have your players starting to come into place. You play well, but you're still going to have sort of these backslides or these regressions or these hiccups and these moments when it just doesn't it's not as consistent. It doesn't sustain. And so I think that's kind of what they endured. But yeah, I mean, the surprise to me was that it was the defense that was the culprit. I mean, you look at offensively, and they said it today here on Tuesday. They said it after the game. Like if the offense scores 24 points, that should be good enough for what Nebraska's defense thinks that it can be. And so like special teams has been a problem child, and that's still sort of the situation. I thought the offense looked better. They're still figuring out the run game. It remains to be seen how consistently they can move the ball on the ground when they're not relying on the quarterback run game. But yeah, I mean, it kind of felt like those areas would be figured out while the defense did what it has been doing. And I think it's been fascinating hearing players and Tony White kind of process it these last few days. I mean, John Bullock, the linebacker on Saturday, was like, yeah, there were these moments where we kind of freaked out a little bit because we weren't getting the results that we're used to getting. And and like today on Tuesday, guys were pissed, quite honestly. I mean, Isaac Gifford gets up there and he's just irked. You can tell he's bugged. He's giving short answers. MJ Sherman comes up there and he's like, we got punched and we didn't have our hands up and we need to do that next time. And so like, I think they took it personally in a lot of ways just because it was so shocking from what they have. And so like, this is a moment where you see what Nebraska is made of. Like, is this the start of a tailspin where we've seen it in past years where one tough loss turns into two, turns into three? Or is this a moment, say, like the Nebraska volleyball team put up, where they have a surprising loss and they come back and they just dominate and they show who they are? Like, I think that's the message that this team's going to have a chance to tell one way or the other this next weekend.
I try and keep it a little bit more positive, TJ. I know it's ruining your week. Everything's going to be fine. I think if we just look at it from last year to this year.
I'm sorry I care, Jeff. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to put a positive spin on this thing. It's early. It's
all sunshine and rainbows, isn't it, Jeff?
We have one loss. I mean, we have one loss, and it was to a top 25 team. It's early in the season, first conference team, and hopefully it's we're not going to go undefeated the rest of the way. I doubt, but it's one loss. It's early. We're 3-1. We would have killed for this last year. Let's calm down and just chill out a little bit. What do you think about that?
I'm hoping it turns out to be like what happened after the Michigan game last year. They come back from Michigan and they're all just getting chewed out, and then they came back and didn't they win 3 straight after that last year after the Michigan game?
Illinois, starting with Illinois,
definitely a turning point.
I'm hoping that that's the case. And you know what? I thought about this too. Like what's coming up here in the season is exciting to me because Tony White, Matt Rule, these guys make more money than we'll probably ever make in our lives. And they're paid to adjust and be football coaches, right? Something's not working. That's when the good coaches show up. You adjust something here, you tinker something there, and that's the fun part for me. It's going to be really exciting to see how that defense looks on Saturday. We're talking about how pissed off they are, and they know they need to make some changes. Now it's going to be fun to see what they do.
Do you guys think like the Dylan Raiola effect impacts how you view this game? Because I heard it's from some players and coaches this week. Tony White said, "Hey, look, this freshman quarterback's balling out. We need to do our part on the defense." I think I get this sense, and you guys tell me if you agree, like that there's more intensity to this season because Nebraska feels like it has a dude at quarterback, and you don't want to waste that opportunity when you have that guy in place. It seems like there's maybe less patience or more angst when those other areas don't live up to their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
I think
mean,
so.
100%. I talk to people at work all the time that say, like, just this last week, he played, for the most part, a great freaking game. And when you compare it with our O-line not being able to, open up holes for the running game, or running backs not being able to get loose in space, or our line not being able to protect him, I think it also frustrates fans because knock on wood, I don't want this dude to get hurt. You know what I mean? He had to run for his life. And that makes me nervous. I think that's what I think gets a lot of people upset, is they're like, Dylan can't do everything on every single play. And I think that does add a little bit more angst or impatience that people think the rest of the team needs to up their game to help this dude because he can't do it all by himself.
Yeah, and I think you're right, but I think maybe what Evan's getting more at is like you have a short window, right, to take advantage of this guy's here, and we've got an older defense who's got experience, and they had a really great year last year. And I think the combination of those two things, having this experienced defense who we thought was going to be a top 15 defense, and they might still do that, right? We've got 8 games left this season. So I think the combination of those two things, hey, we've got this guy who might already be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football as a true freshman, and we've got this experienced defense. The window's short, so we want to take advantage of it, I think, this year. I think there's something to that, Evan.
Yeah. It's kind of why I think it speaks to why the loss was so frustrating too, I think, because the offense is so much better this year. Raiola made we talked about it on the last pod, Raiola made some incredible throws, led some incredible drives, that one right before halftime, the touchdown drive right before halftime. Like he is balling out and playing so well. And even with the mistakes, even with all the same old stuff, we still went to overtime. We were still in a position to win that game. So that's why it was super frustrating. I did have the thought, I wonder if we'll have some games this year where the offense has to win us a game or two, which, I don't know, need whatever, but just not something we expected coming into this season,
No.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know that we want to get into too many shootouts, but
well, didn't we say all of last season and the beginning of over the summer and the beginning of this season, if we had just an average offense with that defense, we're going to be great. And now already as Husker fans, we're starting to backpedal on that. Like, I think that's
the defense doesn't look the same, at least if you go by the Illinois game.
Doesn't that just suck? Like, that's just the way our lives are, that we always have to backpedal on everything we thought was true. Like,
I know. That's why it's been gnawing at me all week. But, and again, we're not going to panic here. No. We're not going to overdo it, but it sort of throws into question. You thought you could for sure count on this defense, and how good can the offense be? And now it's sort of like, can we even count on that?
Yeah,
does truth even exist?
It's a moving target. Like you're trying to do that experiment where you have like the fixed variable, right? Like, in the defense was supposed to be the fixed variable, and now it's moving around, and like, how can you assess? It's tough.
Yeah. It's like in Wedding Crashers. I'm not just picking on love. I'm not sure friendship exists either. That's how it feels. That's how it feels right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, people are processing it in real time, and I think that's a game that people chalked up as a win, but it's also a game that people didn't think would be a top 25 game in August. So
Right.
there's a lot of kind of reassessing going on. And Illinois was the first example of that, right? Like how we view Indiana is different than we did in August. UCLA, USC, I think is different than we viewed them in August. So like a lot of this stuff is like fluid and it's still,
Yeah.
that's what the early part of the season is about, is like seeing what you have. And now we're getting to that part of the year where we kind of know, at least generally, what every team is about. And then it just becomes about like, okay, who can execute better on a given week. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
the territory that we're coming into now. So like Nebraska hasn't played a perfect game. They haven't played anything close to a perfect game. So I think that's the thing that's driving them, is like, and that's the message that Matt Rule gave this week, was like, hey, look at all these areas that we came up short. 4 personal foul penalties on defense. It had some critical misses. Overtime was a disaster, and yet we were 1 play away from winning the game
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
a ranked team. So like, and you contrast that with Purdue. If you listen to like some of the comments that they're making the last couple of days, I mean, they got blown out by Notre Dame and Oregon State in consecutive weeks. They're changing some of their schemes. They're changing some of their personnel. And you can tell like they're searching. And so Nebraska's not searching. Nebraska's pissed because they know what they wanted to do and they fell short of it in a tight situation. So like I think that's a good place to be, but this is a really interesting game at 11 a.m. on a Saturday on Peacock. Like when you got to do it on
Yeah.
your own.
In
Like
West
this is a really
Lafayette.
good game for Nebraska to show what it's made of.
Yeah. I want to get to Purdue in a minute. What did you think about the trick play with Heinrich Harburg?
I think Nebraska wants to get him on the field more, and they felt good. I mean, Marcus Satterfield said here this week that they felt really comfortable with that double pass. That was the same play they ran, incidentally, at Minnesota last year
Yep.
that worked out for them. So, I think they want to get him on the field, and I think they'll get him on the field more against a Purdue team that has really struggled with mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 weeks, the mobile quarterbacks have just run wild on them. So what an opportunity maybe to bust out some wildcat or direct snaps, or have Harburg out there even as a decoy. So we'll see. But I do think they are trying to make a conscious effort of getting him the ball more. And I think when you talk about the offense in general, the coaches have said, man, these first 3 games, we were able to really spread the ball around. A lot of receivers got involved, 3, 4 running backs got involved. And then you get into Big Ten play and you don't get as many snaps, and every play means a little bit more. And so I think they're still also in the process of kind of figuring out, okay, we like all these guys, but how do we fit them into a game plan? How do we distribute these touches in a way that gives everyone a chance, but also gives Nebraska the best chance to win?
That's what I wonder. I mean, I'm glad that play worked for like 12 yards or whatever. That was fine. It was great. It was almost a disaster. It was.
That's what I wanted to say, is the risk reward. I like a good trick play. Don't get me wrong, and I like that they get Harburg in there. But I felt like the risk reward on that play, the risk far outweighed the amount of effort they had to put into that. To get 10 yards. I mean, like that was for a touchdown. That's a different story. But to get 10 yards, that just seemed like a really, really huge gamble.
Dylan does this all the time. What's the big deal? That's to your point, Evan. I wonder if I wonder if we'll see him come in and get under center and lead a series or a drive, or you know what I'm saying? Like that's what I've been wondering is, are they going to throw that, option that no one has prepared for all week? Are they going to throw that in there? But it's kind of to your point about limited number of snaps. Like when do you pull that trigger? When do you decide that's a good idea? Do you want to sit down your 5-star all-world quarterback? There's probably a lot more that goes into that than common fans tend to think about.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you laid it out. Like, it sounds good, but do you want to take Raul out of the game?
Right.
If you're ever going to, like, just based on matchups and what the opponent struggled with, like, this would be the game to do it. So it feels like an opportunity for Harburg to show what he can do. If not now, then we'll probably, my hunch would be that means we'll see him in just maybe kind of occasional packages the way that we have, catching a little pass or direct snap or whatever it might be. So we'll see. I think they feel like he's an asset that they haven't been able to use as much as they want. And If the opportunity presents itself, I think you'll see him maybe in some meaningful moments on Saturday.
Yep. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Are you what's your what's your plan to get up to West Lafayette? When do you leave? Do you leave Friday? Do you leave Saturday? You're gonna have to leave Friday, I guess. But or do you leave
Oh
before
yeah.
that? Do you leave? You go midweek?
Yeah, I leave early Friday morning. It's like a 9 hour drive. I live in Lincoln, so Sam and I and our photographer Nico are going to drive up, and it's a haul, man. It's in Eastern time as well, so we got to kind of creep over there into Indiana, and there's no great way to do it. You can go south to St. Joe, Missouri, and go over. Or you can take I-80 and kind of get down that way. I know some people will fly, but it's really not all that much easier either. I mean, you can go to Chicago and drive 3 hours from there, or you could fly to Indianapolis. So like it's a hard place to get to, right up there with Penn State, among kind of the harder Big Ten venues to reach. I will say we are actually staying in West Lafayette this year. And I've never done that in like 4 previous trips to Purdue because the hotels are so limited. But when the schedule came out a year ago, I got a wild hair and booked a room right away. And so we're gonna check it out. But it's a
Nice.
college town. It kind of reminds me of Ames for people that remember the old Big 12 days,
Okay.
which
Okay.
Isn't the worst thing in the world. But
No.
So
it definitely one of the smaller communities.
I'm envisioning like an airport hotel shuttle with the World Herald logo on the side of it, and like you're who like I'm envisioning you driving, Sam's on the laptop, and the poor photographer probably isn't allowed to speak.
Quiet down back there.
What's for lunch? Quiet down.
Yeah.
Yeah, pipe down. No,
I have to go to the bathroom. Please, I have to go to the bathroom.
Sam's like, don't stop, Evan. Don't stop.
we have some stories, man. I think this must have been Purdue 2 years ago. We were coming back. We had stayed like 3 hours away or something in God, it might have been Peoria. I don't remember exactly, but we were leaving late. And you know how like when you drive sometimes and your GPS takes you on what it perceives to be the fastest route, but it's like fastest by a minute and it takes you on all these really small side roads.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's what happened. And it was Sam, and we actually had a couple of our Journal Star comrades with us, Luke Mullen and Amy Just, and we were driving late, and it was on this side road in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, in the middle of the night. And like the road, it wasn't even a 2 lane road. It was like a lane and a half. Like if someone had come the other way, I don't know. I mean, someone would have had to go off the road. But there was a moment where we're going, 60 or whatever, and there's this set of train tracks that was right there. Comes out of nowhere. I'm driving. I'm pretty sure we got air on the vehicle. And Sam was in the back. He was like half asleep, had his laptop on him. The laptop goes flying. He wakes up. Everyone's, startled awake at that point. I'm like, it came out of nowhere, that railroad track. I don't know what happened. I'm blaming the GPS. So my lesson learned from that is I don't care if it's 5 more minutes. I'm taking the main road out of there whenever possible. It's a winding road. Don't let it trick you if you're going.
Yeah. Take the freeways, highways, and interstates.
Absolutely.
The good old U.S. highway system.
You answered a question I was thinking, like on those road trips when I travel for work with coworkers, there's always that one person that's like the napper on the road trip. They always has to nap it out. And it sounds like Sam's that guy. And I was thinking, or is it you?
Well, no, I can't nap on the road. I can't do it. It was late. He's usually not. He's usually working. Sundays, especially like when we come back, we take turns. One of us is riding, the other one's driving. In this case, our photographer probably can do some driving, and Sam and I can both do some writing. That'll be kind of the idea, because you don't want to get back and then have to write when you get back. You want to try to be efficient.
Right. Yeah, you guys are working. I just think it's funny, like when you drive and it's like an extended trip like that. Happy to drive. Hey, I'll drive 9 hours. You just sleep comfortably over there and just enjoy the trip.
Yeah, we usually don't roll like that too much. Try to pick a local food spot on the way out and back if we can. We've had some hits. We've had some definite misses. But that's all, that's all part of it.
Well, this topic kind of leads to an idea that I had, Evan, that we've kind of talked about a little bit. But for me, I love seeing other teams' stadiums and game day atmospheres, and obviously comparing it to, what we have at Nebraska, as unfair as that may seem. So making the trip to Purdue, to West Lafayette, or any of these other Big Ten stadiums, I'm just curious, and maybe we can make this an ongoing thing, but do you have any insights onto Ross-Ade Stadium or West Lafayette, or any recommendations or a cool place to hang out for any common fans that may make the trip this weekend or anytime moving forward to West Lafayette?
My experience with West Lafayette until this year now has always been stay an hour or two outside of the town, come in for the game, and then start back afterwards. So it's probably about as limited of an experience I have just being in the community. But Ross-Ade is an experience. Like it's the press box is one of the few in the Big Ten where it actually separates the media from both sides. So we never see the Purdue media when we're there. Like you get off an elevator, visiting media goes to the right, home media is on the left. One of the quirks of the media experience going to Purdue is you park at a golf course that's like half a mile away, maybe, and Purdue will come up with golf carts, and you hop onto the back of the golf carts, and they take you to the game, which is cool. And then afterwards, though, and sometimes it's really cold, and so sometimes there have been games that end, and we do what we got to do, and we're going back out, and it's dark, and it's sub-freezing temperatures, and we're sitting on the back of this thing, huddled up, and just waiting it out just to get to our car. So that's part of the experience. And I've had a few run-ins with Purdue Pete, who, for my money, is the creepiest mascot in college football.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a post game, I think it was 2017, when Nebraska came back and won by a point. We were waiting for post game interviews, and Purdue Pete was right behind me while we were waiting. I turned around and I saw those black soulless eyes,
Devil's eyes,
trying to hypnotize me, and it like legitimately startled me. I'm like, dude. Purdue Pete's a creeper, but that'd be some of it. The experience is cool. I mean, it's kind of a throwback stadium. It's real grass. They have the whole train that comes out, and their entrance is kind of cool through steam, like a Boilermakers. So it's a trip that you probably got to make and check it out. But it's fun. I wouldn't call it one of the best Big Ten atmospheres for football. For basketball, it probably is.
Yeah.
But for football, it's decent.
Good to know.
Well,
I kind of want to go to try to do every single Big Ten stadium. I haven't done very many, but
where have you guys been?
We're gonna do that with the common fans at some point, Matteo. Don't worry.
Yes. I've done Iowa, and I've had Iowa and Wisconsin. I think are the only two Big Ten schools I've been to.
I went to an Iowa game in college when we were not playing them, and I just went with some friends, so I don't know if that counts. I've been to Madison more than once. And then, is that it? Who am I missing? That might be it for me. Geoff?
I've never been to a road game. I've been to Notre Dame and USC in 2017. That was pretty awesome.
Nice.
I don't think anybody cares.
It was great. It was fun.
No, nobody cares.
No, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Rivalry game. Irish won, beat the shit out of them. It was great. Partied with Mike Golick and Mike Golick's son. It was awesome.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the football part of it and pivoting away from Geoff talking about Notre Dame, Boilermakers come in at 1-2 after going 4-8 last season. They do not appear by anyone's metrics to be a very good team this year, Evan, but common fans could be forgiven for being a little bit nervous about this one and just seeing how the Huskers bounce back. What kind of a test will be awaiting the Huskers in beautiful Ross-Ade Stadium in West Lafayette?
I mean, it's a team that's searching for sure. I mean, I mentioned the blowout losses to Notre Dame and Oregon State. Their defense has struggled in a lot of respects. I think their offense, Husker fans will remember Devin Mockabee, the running back. He's still there. He had I think, 168-yard game last week, so he's still a focal point of what they do. Hudson Card's the quarterback. He's the guy who once upon a time was in a battle with Casey Thompson at Texas to
Yep.
try to be that starter out there. One thing here are a couple fun facts about Purdue. One is that something they have in common with Alabama is that they have not attempted a field goal this year.
Huh.
So it just hasn't happened through the 3 games for them. And they are one of, I think, 2 or 3 teams in the country that have yet to force a takeaway.
Oh,
So
wow.
they don't have any. They don't have any from a guy in Ryan Walters who, is a defensive minded guy. So
Mhm.
you couple that with some of the struggles that they've had offensively, and it's a rough start. And he's a first time head coach, second year. I mean, he's late 30s. So, they took a chance on someone who was less experienced, and he may yet figure it out, but it just hasn't necessarily happened yet. So Purdue's always one of those teams, though, that's given Nebraska fits in the last 8 years or so. They're good with misdirection. If they want to hit hard, they can do that. The defense tends to be just good enough to keep them competitive. So, Nebraska players will say it every week, but I think it's especially true this week. It's about Nebraska. And like, if Nebraska does what it wants to do, it should be fine. And if it doesn't, then it might be close. It might be tense, and Purdue might have something to say about it. But I think Nebraska's clearly the better team, in my opinion. They have more of an identity at this point, both second-year head coaches. But we'll see. You never know. When they go on the road, it's the first road game for Raiola, first road game for Nebraska this year. So there's some uncertainty to it. But it is one Nebraska you would think should win, and the point spread would back that up.
And I will say,
go ahead, Jeff.
The one thing, and I'm not trying to bring up Notre Dame to be funny this time. The one thing I noticed about that game when Notre Dame hung 66 on him is that Riley Leonard has not thrown a touchdown pass up until last week when they played, who's their last opponent? Miami of Ohio. He didn't throw one touchdown pass in that entire Purdue game, which means their touchdowns were relegated to running, the quarterback running, and defensive turnovers and pick sixes. So this really is a time for our running game to shine and our defense to shine big time to put points on the board. So if there's any time for us to have a bounce back on the areas of the game that Nebraska struggled with this last week, this would be the game to do it.
Yeah, it sure seems like a get right game for our running game, especially because Purdue gave up a ton of yards to Oregon State. They gave up a ton of yards on the ground to Notre Dame. So hopefully we can run the ball on Saturday.
Purdue is one of those teams like that, to your point, Evan. We've had some mind-boggling losses to them that are just infuriating. We Evan, you don't have to partake in this, but we like to talk on this program about second-rate programs that are not as good as Nebraska, never will be as good as Nebraska. I mean, Purdue is a second-rate football program. Everybody knows that. It's really not up for debate. And it's so aggravating that we would ever lose to them. 3 that come to mind are 2015, the Mike Riley era. That season was just kind of a mess, but they mostly fought, and the games they did lose were really close, and they went to Purdue, and it was just a total dud. They kind of just didn't show up that day. I think we lost by about 10. And then 2019 at Purdue, I think we had the lead in the fourth quarter 2 or 3 times, and then the defense couldn't stop their offense. And then 2021 was another one. We lost like 28-23 or something in 2021. So those are, I mean, they had a few good teams under Jeff Brom. Like Frost's first team was not ready for them in 2018. Like there were a few games like we probably just shouldn't have won. 2022, Trey Palmer went off, but still lost that one. But anyway, just infuriating. And you guys mentioned how bad their run defense is. It's interesting on the offensive side of the ball for them, just in doing the tiniest bit of research that, like a common fan. Graham Harrell is their offensive coordinator. He comes from the Mike Leach Air Raid coaching tree. But they ran for, I want to say, I can't remember which, Notre Dame, they didn't do much of anything, but the other 2 games, including Oregon State, they ran for 250-ish yards, both games. So it just and Hudson Card has looked pretty, I guess pretty average in the Notre Dame and Oregon State games. So anyway, I'm not sure what to expect. I'd like to think if we can slow down their run game and make Card try to beat us. I think that's going to work out pretty well for us. I don't know. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. I was putting together some research today. I mean, on a per carry basis, Purdue's like a top 10 rushing team, but when you look at attempts per game, they're like 117th out of 130 FBS teams. So it tells you that when they pick their spots to run, it's tended to be effective. And part of the reason they haven't is because they've fallen behind and game situation has them trying to play catch up. So they haven't done that a ton. But like that's the game plan for Nebraska. And Purdue, conversely, like Ryan Walters said this week, yeah, we have no takeaways right now defensively. And a lot of that's because our opponents have been able to play from ahead and be conservative, and it just snowballed on Purdue. So I think that's one of the keys that you watch for on Saturday is like getting off to a hot start. I mean, if you're Nebraska and you can go up 10-0, 14-0 early on a Saturday against a team that's been boat raced the last 2 weeks, and then you don't have to press the envelope or push the envelope offensively, and you can really make Purdue one-dimensional with its offense. Like that's a recipe to me for Nebraska making this a 2 or 3-quarter game. If that's not the case, if Purdue scores early and puts some doubt in Nebraska and the black shirts are looking at each other a little bit, then I think it could get a little weird, a little tense on Saturday afternoon in Indiana. But like it sounds obvious to say like start fast, but I think just given what Purdue's experience has been these last couple weeks and how it has shown already that it can become one-dimensional, it would behoove Nebraska to score early, and I think that's probably its quickest and easiest path to victory.
Yeah. Evan, the whole coaching staff has talked about this, but Coach Rule talked about wanting to have a downhill running game. He said in the press conference this week, Illinois, they thought was going to be a game where we gave it to Dante Dowdell 25 times and just pounded the rock. And they talk about wanting to be a team that wears teams down in the fourth quarter. And, Satterfield talked about that again, I think today, if I'm not mistaken. But then you look at, they had 102 sack adjusted rushing yards against Illinois. I'll be honest with you, even when we were flying high in those first 3 games, and they would talk about that, I was super excited with how they were playing, but I would kind of be like, I'm not sure they're doing that with the downhill run game. I mean, they're committing to the run, but this isn't. I don't know. It didn't always look like that. So I'm just curious, like, what's your take on that? Like, do you feel like Satterfield maybe wants to commit to the run, but then abandons it? Or do you think, I mean, I believe they mean it, but it feels like we've heard this a lot for a long time at Nebraska, and we get big brained offensive coordinators who want to scheme up a bunch of stuff and then they move away from it really quickly.
Yeah, I think in his heart, Satterfield's a sling it kind of a guy. I think that's what he would prefer to do. He had some good thoughts today about it, about how running the ball is sort of a means to an end. I mean that if Nebraska's winning games the way that it wants to win them, it's a body blow sort of offense where you get to the fourth quarter and you've maybe worn your opponent down. Matt Rule always lays the benchmark of let's get 75 rushing yards in the fourth quarter. If we can hit that threshold, we feel pretty good about it. And it's that idea of pounding the rock. Everyone thinks about that as what you do when you run the ball. But what Nebraska means for that is like that idea that you keep pounding the rock, you pound a rock, and eventually it's going to break. It might not break on the second or the third hit. It might break on the 38th hit. But that's kind of the idea that they're trying to go for is like, let's wear them down. We're going to be the tougher team. We're going to be more physical, and we're going to win it late. Didn't happen this time, and Nebraska's figuring things out. I mean, they're still figuring out their running back rotation. Matt Rule expressed some regret about not getting Emmett Johnson to carry against Illinois. Now they have to figure out their offensive line with Turner Corcoran out for an extended period. So you're down your first 2 left tackles, and you have to decide, do you want to go Gunnar Gatula, who's a redshirt freshman who looked pretty good in spot duty, or do you rotate some guys around? You could move Micah Mazuka to the outside. They have another number 2 guard Tyler Kanak, who could move outside as well. Henry Letuski's played outside, so they have some decisions to make just in terms of the personnel and how they want to do it. But we'll see. Like you guys have said, Purdue's not a good run defense. This should be a game where they can build up some confidence, figure out some things that they want to do. I'm curious for you guys, though. So Nebraska finished with 48 rushing yards against Illinois. That's the lowest rushing output that they've had in a game since 2018 Michigan, which nobody wants to remember. That was the low point, one of the low points of the Frost era. So, like, do you guys care how much they run it? As long, are you like, do you guys side on this idea that, hey, as long as they win, if they pass it 50 times, so be it? Or do you guys feel like, yeah, they need to run the ball some? It matters how they win some of these games.
I don't care how they win, but in my opinion, winning regularly, consistently winning football teams run the ball well. Does that make sense? That came out weird.
Yeah.
No.
I think you've got to run the ball well consistently. At least have it there as a threat. I mean, TJ mentioned Mike Leach and Graham Harrell, going back to Texas. Even Texas Tech ran the ball fairly well at times. It's just like they were throwing more to set up the run. Like, you still have to run the ball. But I'm not one of those run the damn ball, we should be running triple option guys anymore. Like, it was fun to talk about back when Callahan took over, but it's still like, I don't care how we win, but I know that running the ball is important, if that makes any sense. It's a very non-answer in an election year, Evan.
Run it, pass it, whatever you got to do to win the game.
But run the ball.
But the threat, Owens, you mentioned the threat of running the ball. At least that can open up the passing game too. I felt like in the Illinois game, the threat of running the ball completely went away. And so that got them to change up their whole defensive scheme, that they're like, well, they're not running this thing. So we can just rush the shit out of Dylan Raiola here. And we saw that in overtime. They were on him every freaking play, where we were on the wrong side of the 50-yard line. So it'd be nice to at least have the threat of it. So again, with Owens there, I don't care if you pass or run to win, but I think you just need to have a little bit of both in your game plan.
Yeah, part of that total, Evan, is what did Royal have? Negative 54 rushing yards after getting sacked several times, right? But like, I think what's frustrating is, and I believe, Riley said he always wanted to be top 3 in the Big Ten in rushing. I mean, I believe all these coaches when they say this stuff, but it kind of comes down to an identity, I feel like, and a culture. And it doesn't feel like we are consistently that team that when we need 2 yards and we know we're going to run it, and the other team knows we're going to run it, and everybody in the stadium knows we're going to run it, and we run it and get it. Like, we're not the team that then we're going to run it anyways, and we're going to do it and we get it, right? We have not been that team consistently. And in my opinion,
for years,
and we haven't been that team that once we get to the fourth quarter, whether we're milking a lead, or I guess it'd just be milking a lead, right? Or it's they actually did take 5 minutes off the clock at the end of the game. That was a pretty good drive in the fourth quarter with a good mix of passing and running. But like, we just haven't been that team that, how many times in the Frost era did we did have a lead, and all we needed to do, maybe not a minute left, maybe 3 or 4 minutes left, and all we had to do was get 1 or 2 more first downs, and we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have not been that team. And it doesn't, I think Rule, his team is more physical. He's definitely preaches that more. It's part of the team's identity. But I'm totally going by the eye test here. I'm not going by any data or stats, but I don't feel like we're that team yet. Again, and look, if we had won the game on Saturday or on Friday night, then I think we're all saying, no, it doesn't matter to us. Doesn't, like, Dylan Raiola is for the Heisman. Let's go. So I think people don't really care, but I just think you get into those situations when you have to run the ball and you can't do it. And that's really frustrating for Nebraska fans in particular.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matteo, go ahead.
Well, no, I just going to say, like, especially when you have a good quarterback and a young quarterback, you got to run the ball to do play action too, right? Like, the play action pass is one of the greatest plays ever invented, right? The threat
as Illinois displayed repeatedly on Friday
absolutely
night.
That we had no answer for. So I had more there, but it's gone. So we might as well move on.
I almost remembered something else, but it's gone now.
Yeah, it's gone.
That Wayne's World too.
That was beautiful, Matteo. That was
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Well,
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
yeah.
I think you're onto something there with running the ball, especially when you need 2 yards. And like you said, we know we're running it. They know we're running it. The whole stadium knows we're running it. We still get it. I think a lot of that is culture and mentality, which I think is starting to get there. And a lot of it's the dudes. Like, you've got to have some serious mauling road grader guys that are just going to maul people to get 3 yards. And we've had decent O linemen, but we haven't had like full on dudes. So I'm just gonna say they've been great guys, work hard, solid players, a lot of experience, but I don't know if that's their specialty to just go pound right at somebody and get those 2-3 yards.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's interesting, Matteo. Do you think it's a personnel issue, Evan?
It's hard to, I mean, maybe. I mean, a lot of the linemen that are there have been there for a long time. You would think that they could make it work with
Right.
Bryce Benharts and the Ben Scotts and Micah Mazuka, who's been a starter at, Baylor and Florida previously. Like they have guys who you would think could handle it. Some of it might just be the running back side as well, and just the lack of that one guy to step forward. You look around the Big Ten, and half the league has a guy. I mean, Ohio State has a guy, Rutgers has a guy, Purdue has a guy. Nebraska hasn't had a guy in a while, and yeah, the depth can be helpful, and you can kind of play skill sets and matchups, and the depth could be, good in November in terms of injuries and whatnot. But it's hard to replace the guy when you have Amir and when you have Roy Halou or Rex Burkhead. Like there's just something about those guys that they make more out of less. And if you need 2 yards, they're going to get you 2.5 or whatever. It's been a while since Nebraska's had that guy. So maybe that guy's on the way. I know they like their recruiting class coming in next year. They have a couple pretty promising prospects in that regard. But we'll see. And this is the kind of year, or this is the time of year when like the plan that you have, you put it to the test. Like it sounds good, I'm going to run the ball, but what do you do on 3rd and 3 in a tie game in the fourth quarter? Like that's different. Suddenly your theology goes out the window and it becomes what do I feel like I can do to win this game right now? And when those things match up, then you've got something going on. And when they don't, you're just kind of figuring that out as you go, and maybe the identity piece is a little harder to find.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Who picks the music on the drive to Purdue?
Whoever's driving tends to have control of that. Honestly, we're kind of boring. We listen to a lot of coach interviews. We'll do some podcasts, like we catch up on some stuff. But yeah, I'll put on some classic rock. I think that's kind of my go-to if if we're relaxing or that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, we only started in October of last year, first road game of this year, but this is your chance to, listen to
really
nine hours of Common Fan podcast.
Ooh, I didn't get totally caught up. Yeah.
100%.
Or, I mean, you were part of the Reckoning series. If you didn't get to listen to all of those episodes, you could do that.
And there's some real good early stuff, really raw. You could really sense the raw talent. You'd be like, these guys might have something.
Oh, yeah.
Like a great show before it
like
finds its
underground
voice.
Stuff.
And
exactly.
There was there may or may not be a Christmas episode out there where we were all imbibing during the podcast.
We're doing that again. By
been
the
told it was very entertaining for the 38 people that listened to it.
Yeah, that's right. And the Thanksgiving one was fantastic too. I was our second or third episode ever. We did like an hour and a half, or maybe hour 45. We made it 2 episodes, but we did a mid-season review. Because we started, like I said, we started in October, so our like second or third episode was in the middle of the season. I'm really proud of that one. I want to go back and listen to it. That was we got into some good stuff on that one. I'm talking about Burt Bielema setting fake Memorial Stadium on fire and all kinds of fun stuff on that one. So anyway, wow, let's just talk about our own show and ourselves more while on the show. But anyway, Evan,
TJ, favorite color, go.
All righty, Matt, Jeff, any final thoughts or questions for Evan?
I do have a final thought. I have
ahead,
a
Jeff.
final thought here. Yeah.
I knew you would.
I always do. Evan, you heard me talk about the 7-minute mile I ran in high school. It was an amazing athletic feat accomplished by an incredibly unathletic person. So
yeah, it was contested, but yes, I remember.
Yeah, it was contested, but
Still contested.
let me
Still
show you this.
contested.
I want to show you this here. I want to show you this. You guys see this here? You see that? See that?
It's a shoe?
No,
It's a running shoe. It's a running shoe. Got him for my birthday. So I'm bringing it back.
Ah,
I'm going to start running. I'm going to start training. And Ashley's going to videotape me. And I'm going to run a 7-minute mile. I'm going to put this on tape. And I'm going to have documented proof. You take that, TJ. You take that to the bank.
This should be on pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, she filmed the whole thing and we'll put it on the Common Fan YouTube page.
Oh, it's happening.
1,000%.
It's happening. Evan, I just want you to see this as proof.
okay.
Document
Yeah.
this.
Running a 7-minute mile and putting that live. I mean, that's fantastic podcast material right there.
Absolutely.
Just the heavy breathing and the pounding of pavement. And
I think Matt and I need to be there to kind of be the announcers for this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or
I feel like
just have
we
a
should be dressed
conversation.
like trainers with like each of us like throw a white towel around our neck.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good old
Breaking down the Wisconsin matchup in November, just like as you're running.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
like
there you
the old Saturday Night Live John Belushi
Little
little
chocolate
chocolate
donuts.
donuts. He's gonna
Yep.
Jeff's gonna be smoking a cig and eating chocolate donuts.
Yep.
Or when you inevitably quit, Jeff, we're just gonna pull the Royal Tenenbaums. He's taking off his shoes and one of his socks.
What happened out there, Bomber?
Strange day here.
What happened out there, Langenberg?
Oh my gosh, I think we've derailed. Evan, any final thoughts or questions for the Common fans?
Just an early, I guess, bit of thankfulness for all of you that don't have to go to West Lafayette, which is a long trip. And so enjoy, if you don't have Peacock, get Peacock or listen on the radio or go to a bar or, enjoy it. It's, people like the level of emotional, involvement or investment I feel like it's different when you're watching it on TV as opposed to being there in person.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a chance for people to, enjoy more of their Saturdays, get some chores done, go to a watch party, have some fun, and enjoy it, but not be stressed over it for a week. Maybe
I don't think that's possible.
That's not TJ's DNA.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
But enjoy it, but enjoy not being in West Lafayette is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just how I tend to live every day. But yes, in this case, especially.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, another fantastic edition of View from the Blandstands. Thank you so much, Evan Bland, for joining us. Thoroughly enjoyable conversation. Please drive safely to and from West Lafayette.
Yes.
Be careful. Enjoy the ride in the Omaha World Herald shuttle. And subscribe, Common fans. Check out the website, www.commonfan.co. Go to cpbeef.com. Use the promo code CommonFan. Do all the things. Huskers off to West Lafayette. Kickoff at 11 a.m. Central on Saturday on TV on Peacock. So everybody tune in. If you're going to be there, let us know. Send some pics, whatever. And we can't wait for the Huskers to get back on track. So let's go 1-0 this week.
Let's do it.
Huskers and Common fans go 1-0 this week. In the meantime, as always, GBR for life.